This is the HP T740 Thin Client, and we're gonna game on it. Now, last time I did this, I ended up spending a lot of time giving context for what the thing we're working on is. I'm not gonna bother doing that this time. Let's just jump straight in. I've got my power cable here, and... I assume that's good, right? This light indicates one of two things, either a failing power supply or a failed motherboard. I'm hoping the former. The third-party power cable I got from Amazon, which was the only cable that claimed to support this thin client, may not work as intended. HP can be really picky about their power supply cables, so I guess I'll try another cable from eBay, which means waiting another week for it to ship. Okay. In the meantime, how about some context for what this thing is? So, thin clients, what are they? Essentially, they're little boxes that receive a feed from a server elsewhere. They tend to have terrible hardware because although the thin client is here, the computer you're actually using is elsewhere, so a thin client doesn't need to have much going on for itself. Also, typically multiple thin clients can be active on a single server using virtualization. This can cut down drastically on costs for businesses as they don't need one PC per employee. They can just have a few servers with multiple thin clients on each. I once worked for a company that used thin clients, and out of boredom I tried to draw a circle in MS Paint and it came out looking like an octagon instead. That was how slowly it updated. So how do we hope to actually game on one of these things? Well, there's a bit more going on here than you might think. Oh, my power cable arrived. Alright, let's test this one out, and good, no beeping. Hey, we've got a feed. No boot drive, huh? Well, we can fix that. The way this thing opens up is actually really cool. There's no screws or anything on the outer casing. You just pop open this back panel with this little tab and then use something to pop each of the tabs on the top plate, and there you go. There's some kind of little metal plate in here. Goodbye. So, like I said, thin clients generally have pretty terrible hardware, right? Yeah. So explain to me in the world why HP put 8 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM and a quad-core 8-thread AMD 1756B CPU in this thing. Now, sure, a CPU on its own doesn't mean much without a graphics card, right? Well, no, because this is a Ryzen CPU, meaning it should have pretty decent onboard graphics. It's not going to be as good as a dedicated graphics card, of course, but this should still be pretty interesting. Speaking of graphics cards, there's also an open PCIe x16 slot. There's no cables for external power, so you're limited by that and, of course, the amount of physical space you have, but it's possible to throw a GPU in here too. I can't stress how insane this is for a thin client. Most thin clients retail for about $200, but these? Anywhere from around $720 all the way up to $1,400. I got mine for about $50 on eBay though. Still, we're not going to get anywhere with it without our drive. I've got my 512GB NVMe here. Pop it into the slot and screw it in. Then I'm gonna close everything back up and plug it in. Alright, now to install our OS. What are we gonna go with? Well, it's an AMD CPU. You know what works great with AMD? Linux. AMD's drivers are right in the kernel, making it a great choice for this thing. First, we've got to get into the BIOS though. Hitting escape during boot takes us to the startup menu, and computer setup will bring us to our BIOS. Go over to security, down to disable secure boot, F10 to accept, and disable secure boot. After that, we've just got to go back to file and then save changes and exit. Now, I ended up having to do this a few times because I was failing to notice this screen that popped up after saving, which said to actually complete the changes, you have to type this code in. That's because I was spamming escape to get back to the boot menu, which coincidentally also automatically closes this screen before I could read it. From there, simply go down to boot menu and select the USB drive that you have your OS installation onto. Now, I wanted to do base Arch Linux, however, the installation wasn't playing nice with my capture card, and I really didn't want to subject you to off-camera recording like this. Next, I tried Endeavour OS, which is still an Arch-based system, but it has a live environment with a desktop and everything to install from. Trying that resulted in a super flickery image. I don't know why, but I'm also not trying to give an epileptic viewer a seizure, hence why there's no footage. Finally, I tried Reborn OS. This is also Arch-based, but unlike Endeavour, which is mostly terminal-focused, Reborn OS is mostly focused around the GUI. And I was able to record it without flickering, so Reborn OS wins. I've actually used Reborn OS a lot, especially when I was first starting out with Linux. I wanted to use Arch, but the terminal was a little out of my wheelhouse to begin with, so Reborn made it easy. I probably wouldn't recommend any Arch system for someone just starting out Linux. For that, I'd probably recommend something like Linux Mint, which is Ubuntu based. There's also a couple of people who will destroy me if I don't mention Debian, so yeah, Debian exists. I haven't used it, but apparently it's good. I wouldn't know. Anyway, installing Reborn OS is easy. Just use the Calamares installer like a lot of Linux distros have, and it'll guide you through everything pretty simply. We get to choose our desktop environment. I'm the world's #1 GNOME hater, so KDE it is. There's also a screen where you can pick a lot of software, but I don't really need any of this stuff. After that, we'll just let it install, and at the end of this, we should have a working system with a brand new install of our operating system. Isn't it lovely? Just gonna open up the terminal and install Steam, and we should be able to hit the ground running. I'm gonna be judging games on a scale with 3 ratings. First up is unplayable. This is obviously when a game is either completely broken or otherwise such a bad experience that I can't recommend playing it on this thing. Next is technically playable. This is a game that runs more or less, but isn't necessarily the best experience. Finally, we've got perfectly playable, which should be self-explanatory. What are we going to start with, though? Well, there's 3 generations of Valve engines now, with a major Half-Life title to each of their names, so let's start there. That should give us a good baseline for performance, right? Half-Life 1. Unsurprisingly, this is perfectly playable. I mean, you don't even need a 3D card to run Half-Life since there's a software mode, so even non-Ryzen CPUs without a graphics card should be able to run this with no issue whatsoever. Next up, Half-Life 2. Yeah, still perfect. Half-Life 2 came out when most CPUs were at best still dual cores, so a quad-core 8-thread CPU with good onboard graphics is no big deal. Finally, Half-Life Alyx with the no VR mod. Oof, yeah, okay, we've hit our first roadblock. This is not great performance. So are we stuck? Well, no. Now it's running at over 30 FPS. But what's the trick? The game looks a bit different, right? Introducing GameScope. Thanks to Valve, we can edit a lot of stuff with how our game runs. Here's the code I'm using. It might seem complex, but don't worry, I'm gonna break it down. First up is the internal render resolution for our game. In this case, I'm doing 854 by 480. Then our display resolution, which is 1920 by 1080. We're upscaling it using AMD's Fidelity FX Super Resolution, or FSR. Then our frame rate, in this case 60, though I'll change that from game to game depending on our target. Finally, I'm creating a borderless window, then just 2 hyphens and %command%. I don't know why it needs that, but it does. Anyway, with this command, we can drastically reduce the rendering resolution, boosting performance, and still have a decent looking image using FSR upscaling. I'd probably recommend dropping the frame rate to 30 so it's more stable, but still, Half-Life Alyx is what I'd call our first technically playable game on this thing. People seem to like Doom being used for this sort of test, so let's go with that. Here's where we encounter our first problem. With that GameScope code from earlier, for some reason, it makes Doom's aim sensitivity absolutely insane. Even dropping the sensitivity as low as I could left this completely unplayable. It's a shame because it seems like it would run okay if only you could actually aim with any consistency. Without the GameScope code, I found that Doom was averaging around 12 FPS, so GameScope or not, I'm going to say Doom is unfortunately unplayable. Another game I can't use GameScope on is Skyrim. It just left it so the mouse couldn't be used at all, but that's fine. Turns out the game runs great without it. Now, this is at 720p and on low settings, but still, I'd be totally happy to game with graphics looking like this. We're at a solid 60 FPS. Alright, so what's next? Look, I know you guys. You want to know about Dark Souls. Yeah, okay, fine, let's do it. Besides, it came out the same year as Skyrim, so it'll be good, right? Well, I tested both the Prepare to Die edition with DSFix and the remastered edition of the first game with GameScope. Neither were especially good, usually hovering between 30 to 40 FPS. That said, between the two of them, I'd recommend the Prepare to Die edition. With remastered, when the frame rate drops below 60, all the game's logic slows down and everything starts to run in slow motion. Maybe this is great if you have slow reaction times, but I think the way PTDE just drops those frames is a better experience. Drop the frame rate down to 30 FPS and it'll be better. So PTDE gets technically playable, and remastered I'd argue is unplayable. Okay, so if we can't run Dark Souls all that well, anything after it is going to be a nightmare, right? Wrong! Dark Souls 2 works perfectly. I'd recommend the GameScope code to get a solid 60 FPS, but honestly, even without it, at 720p, I was getting around 55 FPS. Of course, this is still all on low settings, but damn! Once again, I'd be totally happy to play like this. I guess this is the difference between an engine designed to be used on PC from the get-go versus Dark Souls 1's port job. Moving on to Dark Souls 3, and yeah, I had to target 30 FPS this time around. But for what it's worth, it was mostly solid. There's an occasional dip, but you could get through the game like this. So it's gonna get a technically playable rating, and I mean, 30 FPS was the target when the game came out on PS4, so, you know. Now, clearly we're pushing the limits of the T740's capabilities with anything from the 7th gen onwards. It's possible, but not without some extreme concessions. So, how about the 6th gen? Well, I tried out 3 games from that era with modern native PC ports. Devil May Cry 3, Ninja Gaiden, and Kingdom Hearts 2 all ran fantastic. 1080p, rock solid 60 FPS the whole time, absolutely perfect with no game scope. So, does that mean we're stuck on mostly this generation and some Skyrim? First of all, I don't like your tone, okay? The PS2 rolled. I do get it though. It would be nice if we had something infinitely replayable. Well, it doesn't get much more infinite than Minecraft. Now, this isn't straight up vanilla. I did install a mod that allows you to use Vulkan rendering made by someone called X-Collateral. I had to install Fabric to use it, but this is pretty sweet. If you play Minecraft on Linux, I absolutely recommend checking this out. Now, in fairness, I didn't really need this mod, but I did want to use Mango HUD to keep an eye on the frame rate, and this was an easy way to do it. In my experience, this was a totally rock-solid 60 FPS on the T740, meaning Minecraft is perfectly playable. Actually, the T740 would probably make a fantastic Minecraft server. Maybe you'd want more than 8GB of RAM, but still worth considering. Comment below if I should start a Minecraft server for my Discord, links in the description. Alright, just a couple more now. Next up, I tried Pseudo Regalia. 1080p, 120 FPS. You might be looking at this and thinking, oh come on, of course this is gonna run, look at it. Well, it's not that simple. I mean, despite its looks, this does run on Unreal Engine 5. I have a laptop that I bought just a couple of years ago that can't run Pseudo Regalia, so this wasn't a guarantee. Luckily, it runs exceptionally. Maybe that should be a 4th category. Finally, Vernal Edge. Yeah, of course, this thing does 2D games without a fuss. Mostly I just wanted to show these 2 games because my friends made them. Ritz and Matt, if you're watching this, I love you. Well, that's everything I tested. For a thin client, this thing is a beast. Of course, games aren't exactly the best idea still, but it can still handle them if you're willing to keep some of your expectations in check. If I had absolutely nothing, I'd be happy to play games just on this thing. I didn't even get into emulation. There's an infinite amount of hours to be had there. But let's be honest, I'm not really going to game on this, right? I mean, I already have a gaming PC. In fact, I have two. Well, no, you're right. It was a fun experiment, but I'm not intending to regularly use this as a game machine. So, what do I intend to do? Just sell it back off? Throw it away? Well, no. Remember that PCIe slot? I don't have a graphics card I can throw in there, but you know what I do have? My capture card, which is currently in my old PC. In fact, currently the slot my capture card is in isn't actually big enough for what the card wants. Ever noticed how I don't have any of the game audio? Partially that's by choice, and partially it isn't. Check it out, here's how my capture card audio sounds. Isn't that lovely? But this wouldn't be happening if I had the card in a full x16 slot. Besides, I'd much rather have this thing on my desk than two full gaming PCs, so let's do that. Pop this baby open and spend an inordinate amount of time trying to remove the shield cover. In fact, I bent it, but after a lot of blood and sweat, no, really, I did actually cut myself somehow and bled onto the table, we're able to install the capture card. Alright, so there's no clearance. Never mind. Alright, that's all for now. I had a ton of fun making this, and I have more ideas for similar videos. If you enjoyed, maybe help spread this around so more people will see. It's pretty hard to promote stuff yourself right now, so you'd be doing me a big favor by doing so. Also, if you missed it, check out the previous video I did, which is all about the Ouya, a failed game console from 2014. That's about it. Thanks for watching.